Hello there, and I'm going to present a persuasive speech here in just a moment, but I want to say a couple of things before I begin. First of all, as you can see, I'm using slides. I prepared this speech some time ago, year or two ago, uh, in response to a speech a student gave, which was just great fun, and it was all about proving that the Earth was flat. And so I thought, well, what the heck? I'll do one that proves the Earth is round. All right, so that's my persuasive speech. Again, the reason I'm using the slides as I have them, I want you to go ahead and see it with the slides, but the basic speech format can be done with or without the slides. Once again, you do not need to use slides for your speech. Now, as you listen to this speech, and I'll talk about this when I finish, but as you listen to this speech, uh, try to decide: am I giving a speech of fact, value, or policy? Which type of speech am I giving? All right, because again, you have to decide one of those three. If you don't know which of those three you're trying to give, how can you even give the speech effectively? So anyway, I'll talk about that after I present the speech. Once again, I'm using an outline. I will post the outline. It will be in the Canvas files for you uh, so that you can look at my outline. I will also provide an outline template, which for the persuasive speech looks almost exactly like the informative speech. The basic outline is the same for any speech. But I'll provide an outline specifically for the persuasive speech. I'll also post the rubric and some other materials for you. All right, so again, I'm going to use my outline. I've had a few people ask, is it all right to use your outline when giving the speech? Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm having you do the outline. It's there for you. And it's perfectly all right to, if you ever find yourself giving a presentation to a group somewhere, it's perfectly all right to have your notes with you, whether you write them on note cards or you have them on a piece of paper, it doesn't matter. The biggest issue with having the notes in front of you is make sure you don't end up doing this with your head down the whole time. I have to compliment almost all of you have found ways to either tape the outline up in front of you or whatever. Some of you hold it, which is perfectly fine. But yes, please feel free to use the outline. So, my name is Ray Shabinsky, and I want to tell you the truth is out there. And I'm going to talk about the earth is round. And I'm going to begin with a familiar story. Everyone's heard of Christopher Columbus. And at least when I was a kid growing up, they were still teaching in school that Columbus wanted to sail from Spain around the world to get, going west to get to the Far East to prove the earth was round. Nah, he knew exactly that the earth was round. In fact, we've known the earth is round. People have known the earth is round for at least 2,000 years and probably a whole lot more. Now, if you've ever been on a cruise, and I've actually been on a couple of them, when you're out to sea, the earth looks flat. On a calm day when there's no waves and you're just sitting on the deck of the boat, it sure looks flat. And so what you see can be deceiving. We live in a world of crazy ideas, all sorts of things. And just because something isn't obvious doesn't mean it isn't true. So today, I'm going to uh, do a rebuttal to a group called the Flat Earth Society. And here's their mission statement. The mission of the Flat Earth Society is to promote the idea that the earth is flat. They call it a theory, but yeah, that, why even bother? The earth is round. So today, from the very comfort of wherever you're sitting, I'm going to persuade you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the earth is round. while showing you that you can't always believe your eyes and why this is actually important. All right, so here we go. Now, why am I talking about this? Here I go with astronomy again. When I was in college, I took a course called spherical astronomy, and I was just amazed at how you can prove uh, things that you just can't see using, in in essence, pretty simple math. So, what am I going to talk about today? I want to tell you a little bit about how ancient people figured out that the Earth was round. I'm going to talk some physical proofs showing that the Earth is round, and then why we actually depend for our survival to live on a spherical Earth. All right, so you say, but I can't see it. Even when I'm in an airplane at 40,000 feet, the Earth still looks flat. Well, and again, from the Flat Earth Society, they say that exactly that. The world looks flat. The bottoms of the clouds are flat. Huh? The movement of the sun. These are all examples of our senses telling us that we don't live on a spherical world. Really? Okay. Well, I mean, I can't argue that the Earth normally looks flat. All right. So let's jump in a way back time machine and see what the ancients thought about this. All right. So the first person, oh, you've heard his name before, Aristotle. Man, he thought about everything. And according to A. Panakuk, a fellow who was a scholar in the history of astronomy, his book, A History of Astronomy, Aristotle was one of the greatest observers in the ancient world of all times. And Aristotle pointed out a couple of things. One, he said, during a lunar eclipse, the shadow of the Earth, because he had figured out that the only way you can eclipse the moon is if the Earth gets in the way, that the shadow of the Earth is curved. If that if the Earth weren't round, then it would just be a straight line. So he pointed that out. In fact, here's the flat Earth eclipse. Yeah, right. Okay. He also pointed out, and let's see if I can move me. There we go. How clever. All right. He also pointed out, living on the Mediterranean Sea, the Aegean Sea, in fact, that ships that are nearby, you can see the entire boat. But boats that are further out to sea seem to disappear as they go further and further out. Later in the day, they come back. And as they get closer and closer, you see the full ship again. He said this is because the ships are sailing over the curvature of the Earth. Now, this was 2,500 years ago that Aristotle figured this out just by simple observation. Another guy named Eratosthenes, about a few hundred years later, said, oh, not only is the Earth round, but I can figure out how big around it is. In the book, The Librarian Who Measured the Earth by Catherine Lansky, she said no question was ever too big or too small for Eratosthenes. And using basic geometry, kind of like the stuff I learned in spherical astronomy, he was able to measure the difference between two cities, the altitude of the sun in those cities, and he just did simple geometry, and voila, he figured out that the Earth was about 24,000 miles around. Let me move me again. There it is, 24,000 miles around. This was over 2,000 years ago, and he was almost exactly right, just simply using geometry. All right. So now we know a little bit about what ancients thought and how they figured out that the Earth was round. Here's some examples. Just the other day, there was a pink supermoon, and my brother-in-law, who lives on a farm, oh, my clock is about to chime. Uh, my brother-in-law, who lives on a farm up in Michigan, sent us a picture of the pink supermoon rising. So my wife got on the phone, and Don said, wow, run outside and look at the moon. And Carol said, well, the moon's not up here yet. And then, oh, yeah, that's right. There's a 3-hour time difference between Michigan and Las Vegas, and it's not even dark here yet. If we lived on a flat Earth, it would be the same time everywhere on Earth at any given instant. When the moon rises, everyone on Earth would see the moon rise at the same time. Same thing with the sun. Well, what else? What about time zones? Again, time zones wouldn't even exist if we didn't. Uh, I'm going to move. I love this. This is fun. I'm gonna, here's another website that says, according to some, the Flat Earth Society, the sun doesn't shine in every direction, but is kind of like a spotlight. Well, it just doesn't make any sense. And even if that were the case, we would have no need for time zones. Here's another example. Uh, some years ago, I had business in Australia, and I left Chicago uh, literally the day before Christmas, and I flew to Australia nonstop. It was cold in Chicago. It was the day before Christmas. It was December 24th. Snow was blowing. We barely took off. 14 hours later, I got off the plane in Sydney and dashed down to the beach to meet my friend, who you can see already drank all the beer. And it was summer. It was a different season entirely. How could that be? If we lived on a flat Earth, we would have the same seasons all the time. And of course, I'm not going to go into the astronomy, but because the Earth is round and it's tipped on its axis, it can be summer in the northern hemisphere, winter in the southern hemisphere, and vice versa, depending on where the Earth is in its orbit. All right, so there we go. There's just some physical proofs, everyday things that we actually live with that prove to us that the Earth must be round. And then the real physical proof. Physics. I love physics. Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the great physics and astronomy promoters in the 21st century, says it's all about gravity. Now, according to the Flat Earth Society again, gravity is not the main force keeping us on the ground. It's universal acceleration. Again, this is just made up because everyone remembers Newton's law of gravity and the formula for that, right? Okay. It simply means that gravity pulls on everything equally no matter where you are on the Earth. If we lived on a flat Earth, that wouldn't happen. In fact, if we lived on a flat Earth, it'd be a very strange experience indeed. If you threw a ball straight up in the air, you would find that gravity is stronger at the center of the Earth than it would be out towards the edges on a flat Earth. So if you were over here someplace and you threw that ball up, instead of it coming back down to you, because gravity pulls on everything equally no matter where you are, instead of it coming back down to you, it would go and fly off towards the center of the Earth. All right. Well, it gets worse. Our survival depends on this round Earth. If we lived on a flat Earth, because of gravity being stronger at the center than at the edges, all the water of the Earth would flood towards the center. It would be a very strange world indeed. So, can you believe what you see? Are there other ways of learning the truth? Is the Earth flat or spherical? Obviously, there are ways for us to learn that the truth about the spherical Earth. I'm going to move myself again. All right, there we go. So today I talked about what the ancients thought and figured out how the Earth is round. I explained some simple everyday examples of the round Earth. And then finally, the real physics, the hard stuff that gives us the proof that we need to know that we live on a round Earth. I never suggested we go up in a rocket ship and simply look. I showed you ways to prove that the Earth is round simply by observations from the surface of the Earth itself. So my challenge to you, if you hear ideas that just don't sound right, or you're just not really sure, don't just accept what people tell you. Go out and learn the facts yourself. And in the case of the flat Earth, don't be dumb like those flat earthers. All right. Remember, The truth is out there. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my little talk. All right. And here are my uh, references. Now, I'm going to break out of the speech. So here are my references, and you can see once again, because I'm doing it with the slides like I would have done in class, I have listed all the sources that I used. I cited at least 3. I may have even cited 4 in the speech. I have to go back and look at it. But here we go. The textbook of spherical astronomy. Okay. A history of astronomy. I quoted that. The album of science by Bernard Cohen. The librarian who measured the earth. I quoted from that book. National Public Radio. Neil deGrasse Tyson. The Flat Earth Society. I quoted from them several times. Imangru, a website, and then Live Science, Are Flat Earthers Being Serious? All right, so again, you just put this at the end of your speech. You need 5, just like you did with the informative speech. I can remember what I'm doing here today. Just like the informative speech, you must cite at least 3. Again, why bother? It's because the persuasive speech isn't just about your opinion. Obviously, you are expressing your opinion. My opinion is that the earth is round. Okay, now I could talk about my own personal experiences all day long, but does that does that give me credibility the way that I can achieve by saying, okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the Eratosthenes, Aristotle, Panakuk, spherical astronomy. These are all things I've actually looked into or studied that helps me persuade you that not only do I think this is true, but a whole lot of other people do as well. So do you get it? This is why you need those sources in the speech. This is why you need to say them, so that you can show very clearly that it's not just your opinion, but that you are supported by information that's out there. Now then, was this a speech of fact, value, or policy? Now remember, a speech of policy is a presentation that where you're trying to convince people to do something as a group, a large activity that will affect many, many people. Speech of value is one of, be nice to each other. Now, remember, I used 2 terms in my other lecture, quantification and qualification. In quantification, you're trying to show factual information that proves and persuades. In a qualification, you're citing examples that that can't be measured per se. Uh, Public art is good for us. Well, okay, how do you measure that? All right. Uh, the earth is round. Okay, so I'm giving specific proofs. So my speech must be a speech of fact. All right, so fact, value, and policy. Now, I'm also posting at least one student example of a speech of value, and you can watch that as well, and you'll see how they differ. So there's a speech of fact, a persuasive speech of fact. I hope you believe the earth is round now. I cheated. I didn't pay any attention to the target time because I wanted to use this as a demonstration. Once again, the target time is 5 to 7 minutes. No matter what my other documents may say you can go as long as 7 minutes if you want. You have to at least get to 5 minutes. It's not much of a speech if it's not at least 5 minutes long. So there's my persuasive speech about the truth is out there, the earth is actually round. All right, make sure you watch the other videos. Again, thanks a lot for listening.